How can we stop being so addictive to buying gear? I really enjoy like having the latest technology, the latest gear, latest toys. I really enjoy that side of things. But it's been getting to a point where I'm investing and it's not helped at all. I reflect recently on all the cameras I've sort of purchased and how many thousands have gone into this and what I actually need. I've got a job next week where I've got to take really as little gear as possible to get the maximum output. At the end of the day, that was taking just the hybrid camera and a 24-70. Even though I've got like cinema cameras, maybe some cine lenses, I can take some great lighting and a great tripod. I really need to keep this quite light, and I just need what's going to work the most. What is the minimum viable studio I can take with me? So that's what this video is about today. Just going through all that, why we're sort of getting stuck in this gear acquisition syndrome, why we feel FOMO from all these latest releases, what we can do about it, what we actually need, and what's actually on the market that's kind of worth investing in. And I think you'll be surprised by what I've found out. I've been working on a bunch of projects recently with established creatives, photographers and videographers who have been in the industry for 10, maybe even 15 years. And here's what I've noticed. They're all using older equipment. Lots of Canon 5D Mark IVs, A7S version 1 lenses, cameras that are, 8, 5, 10, 15 years old. Presumably they made their purchase like when they just sort of coming into the industry and they just got what was great back then. And then somehow they just stopped. They didn't get the gear acquisition syndrome that we seem to be stuck with right now. I wonder if that's a lot to do with how social media has shaped things for one reason or another. They're not chasing that latest release, and they're doing better work than most of us. So what do they know that we don't? There's big business in hiring influencers to rant and rave about new cameras and compare and contrast them all. The camera industry relies on creating gear FOMO, and then brands will sponsor creators to deliver these hyped up reviews that frame every incremental update, updated autofocus, marginally better sensors, as mandatory for success. This creates like a cycle of overthinkers who will buy these expensive cinema bodies that they don't need, believing that the perfect gear will solve their creative and financial problems, and it won't. Even when I bought the latest and greatest, I found myself quite unsatisfied. And more often than not, I'm on set with veterans who have zero interest in upgrading. They don't even want to acknowledge the conversation. They've been getting insane ROI on their camera systems for over 10 years. Canon just released the R6V, V for video, and it's their FX3 killer, finally. It's 5 years too late. And in that time, I've gone from GH5 to C70, and then somehow kind of down and backwards a bit to a Sony A7 IV. And when I talk about it, I still haven't had more fun with a camera than I did with my GH5. And bizarrely, this came on Reddit recently. Someone had asked, why do I keep going back to the GH5 over my far superior full-frame cameras? There was just something about that camera. It just punched way above its weight. No full frame, no great low light, no internal NDs. It was incredible without most of the things we're told we need. So then now let's talk this minimum viable approach to cameras and a creative career. In business, you have what's called an MVP, the minimum viable product. Something that's just good enough to test the market and see what needs improving. Before you burn all of your money, you just do a little thing to make sure it's worth it. You bounce it around for a few years, and once you're making some excess money, then maybe you release the V2, and that probably lasts you an even longer amount of time. If we think about the iPhone cycle, it's a great way to look at all of this. The iPhone 1 was great. It came out, invented things, a little messy here and there, but then they fixed that in the 3G, and then the 3GS polished it further, and then the 4, 4S, 5, 6, probably all the way through to the 8 were kind of the same thing. And then we went bevel-less with the 10, and again we've sort of basically been on the same phone for quite a few years now. If you'd upgraded every year, you'd essentially spend now 17k on iPhones, or you could just spend 3k on upgrading every 5 to 6 years. It's a far better investment. And Sony's been doing the same thing. With the A7S II, jumped to the 3, then we're in for another long wait, but in between they've been making these like sideways moves, pixel count, low light, 10-bit, raw, 32-bit float. They're all quite small iterations, but we're compelled to keep jumping. You want to get the A7S II because it can see in the dark, and then it's the A7 III because it does photo and video really well, and then it's got the A7S III because it's got 10-bit and unlimited recording, then it's the FX3 because it's a cinema-focused one, and then the A1 because it's the flagship, and then the A9 III because it's got a global shutter. We're going through a lot of money here, and we're not taking better photos, we're not telling better stories, we're not increasing our day rate. If you'd bought all of these cameras, you'd be about 30k deep into gear that hasn't made you more money. It just hasn't. So let's take this MVP concept and apply it to our camera-centric careers. So maybe we'll call this the minimum viable studio, or an MVS. What should be in your MVS? I think first things first, you want to buy second-hand. You can save an insane amount of money just by doing that. So first off, we want a camera. We really don't want to get stuck on this, and a lot of us will do. What do you actually need? 4K? Even if you're delivering 1080, 4K gives you that wiggle room and a much sharper image when it's all like condensed down. Most cameras offer it now, so you might as well just get 4K. Hybrid, photo, video, or both. Might as well go hybrid. Video is useful for everything right now, and high-res photos can probably be done on your iPhone. You can probably get away with it. You can probably reverse that. Maybe the iPhone does the video, but yeah, get a hybrid, right? If you know you specifically want video, then lean into things that got those specific video elements. Waveform, 32-bit audio, fans, internal NDs. Full frame versus crop. For photos, sure, go full frame. But for video, there's a lot to be said for maybe not worrying about it. Super 35 or APS-C. Even the GH5, that was micro 4/3, which is even smaller, and again, it punched way above its weight. The gap between Super 35 and full frame, like cost-wise, is about 2K. That's also the cost of like a fantastic lens, which is going to have way more impact on your career. My recommendation, without thinking too hard, will get the Sony a7 IV or the 5 now. They cover most things really well. Or, of course, its equivalents, the Canon R6, the Nikon Z6, the Lumix S1. Get anything from 21, 22, second-hand, and you're going to be set for years. Number 2, lenses. Most people want to build towards this holy trinity. That's the 16-35, the 24-70, and the 70-200. Many pros will argue just get like the primes, 24, 35, 50, because it makes you learn. You sort of zoom with your feet. It's a valid argument. I myself just found I needed that versatility of the zoom lens. So the 24-70 is probably where I'd start now. That 16-35, I rarely shoot wide myself. It's hard to get like a blur. I like a blur. So for me, f4 would be fine. I think f4 is going to be fine. 24-70, I think go for that 2.8. It's very, very usable. You use it in all situations. Getting some blur in there is well worth paying a little bit more, £500, £600 more, just to get that f2.8. And then for a 70-200, I think you'll know if you need that. If you need to zoom more, then maybe it's worth thinking about. I've got a little tip actually for these zooms. The extremes of lenses typically are the weakest, especially in those V1s. So if you were to just click up a little bit on the aperture, or just squeeze in the zoom a little bit more, or away from the extremes, you'll get a much better image. Once you've got that 24-70, you might wonder, do I go 70-200 or go prime? It depends on the work that you're doing. Zooms do everything well enough. If you're doing corporate, there's argument to get like a 50mm prime and just get that really great second interview angle. If you're just starting out though, I think just stay with that 24-70 even longer, and then you'll just see where these gaps naturally form. Maybe you need more zoom, get that 70-200. Maybe you just want to elevate everything, so 1.4 primes might be what you want to look into. If you need wider, get the 16-35. If you find you're doing lots of interviews, corporates and stuff, or even YouTube, that 35 1.4 or the 50mm 1.4, I think those will give you a sort of best bang for your buck. It'll give you a juicier image, more blur that we all love. The 85 prime I found was great for portrait photography, but in video I didn't really use it at all. Number 3, tripod. Arguably the greatest investment a filmmaker can make. Something like a Sackler, boring, but it's probably the best thing you could ever buy as a filmmaker, videographer. I've lived on a Manfrotto MVH 500 and the legs for my entire career. It does just a good enough job. It's a pretty solid tripod. There's things about it that aren't great, but it's fine. I look at the Sackler and you just kind of got that one clip and just everything just moves up and down. It would make life a lot easier, but it's okay. It's done the job, You have to go Manfrotto. There's those Chinese equivalents, like the newer small rig, the Sirei. The big looking ones, they're a bit more robust with sliding legs and stuff. You want to get a fluid head, good leg clamps, but yeah, they'll be more than be fine. They'll be fine. If you check out the 3-star reviews, actually, they'll tell you what people liked and what they didn't like, and a good tripod you're going to have for a long time, so it's worth spending a little bit on it. Just make sure you get something solid. Those 1 to 2K tripods are for the real pros. If you're making good enough money and dropping £1,000 on a tripod is a no-brainer, then absolutely do it. For photo, you can get away with something just simple. Something that can flip into vertical framing quickly is great. Small rig, newer again, Manfrotto, all fine. Can't really go too wrong. Just get a good tripod. Fourth, lights. I think flash or continuous, just get continuous and get yourself one great light to start with. Dreamworld 300 watt, 200 watt is fine. So 120 watt, yeah, a little bit under possibly. What you definitely want though, I think, is a Bowens mount. I don't think Profo do video lights, but some of them have like their own kind of mount. Just get Bowens definitely. Amaran would be my go-to recommendation. They've got the aperture light, I think it's called a sinus link or something, and that works really well. All the other brands, those connections seem to fall apart on the app. You can control them temporarily, but it falls apart a bit. I'm on a small rig 120 watt carb light, but I'm looking to upgrade as soon as possible really. Lights are something that you're never gonna regret investing in. You're always gonna want more lights. They're always good to have. You can quite easily rent them out, so yeah, see how you feel and just get a solid light. Over to sound, number 5, super important for video, but for photographers, maybe it's worth investing in. Everyone needs wireless mics now for social media, so yeah. Rode, DJI, Hollyland all do a solid mic set for £100 to £300. Hollyland is the cheaper of the lot, does a really great job. DJI connects to your DJI cameras if you've got any of those. I went Rode because the DJI hadn't released it at the time, but looking back, maybe I would get the DJIs now because they could tap into other things. You can't go too wrong. But 24-bit or 32-bit, some of us get hung up on that. I think 24-bit is fine. It's more important that you get a really good lapel. A cheap lapel will blow out very easily. A £100 lapel will take a bit more beating. The 32-bit thing means that you will struggle to blow out the recording. So it's great for quiet and loud speakers. You can just put it up in post. It just maintains it all. But if you kind of roughly know what you're doing, 24-bit's going to be fine. Just make sure you test the levels beforehand and just get them within range. And a nice lapel, you should be really fine. If it's time to get a 32-bit float, you'll know about it. You'll be looking into it and wanting it. So whatever. And then I didn't know where to include this one, but 6, the gimbal. For video, there's a good argument to have one, but a lot of people in the forums, they buy it and regret it. They don't use it at all, and it's just a heavy, expensive paperweight. I use mine just enough to make it worth it, but IBIS cameras is really plenty these days. So maybe just flip a coin and decide whether you want to get one or not. Some people just use the handles. They'll buy little small rig handles and that's it. That's plenty for them. Yeah, I think that's the minimum viable studio. You've got great lights in there, great tripod, great mic, great lenses, and an okay camera. You can, all of those, it'll take you all the way. With this kit, there's not much that you can't do outside of specialist stuff. It covers you for weddings, interviews, studio work, filmmaking, brand films, social media, real estate, events, music, products. All of it's done at a really high level. I've spent 5 years chasing gear, and people doing better work than me are using cameras from 2015. So here's what I've learnt. Stop buying gear. Stop building systems. This minimum viable studio isn't about having the best. It's about having enough and then getting really, really good at what you have. If this helped, subscribe. I make videos every week about practical systems for creators who overthink. I'd be really interested actually, let me know in the comments. What's one piece of gear that you regret buying? Or maybe one thing that you should have bought ages ago? I think that'd be really helpful to other people in the community. All right, see you next week.